Criterion Games is shutting down the servers for its 2008 game Burnout Paradise, a decision that affects the X360, PlayStation 3, and PC versions of the game. A loss of online support is an inevitability for games with online features, but not many make it as long as Criterion's Burnout Paradise. It's a move the developer announced on Twitter earlier today, and one that comes 11.5 years after the game first launched. The official cutoff point is August 1st,
2019.
Following that, the game's offline features will still function as normal, but players will not be able to access any of the online content, including in-game cards on challenges only available through online play. Since the game is one of many X360 supported by the X1's backward compatibility feature, that version of the game will lose its online services as well. However, Burnout Paradise Remastered, released last year for the X1, PlayStation 4, and PC, is not included in the shutdown, and will continue to feature online play. Burnout Paradise ends after over 5 years of service. The service for the original 2008 game will be closing on August 1st, 2019. That affects X360, PS3 and PC versions. Offline play will still be available of course, and Burnout Paradise Remastered servers are unaffected. Epic plans to update Fortnite's in-game store with the undo button that would let player refund purchases of cosmetic items purchased within game. They box currency within 5 minutes of the purchase, noting as well that the company does not want to benefit from accidental or regrettable purchases. The ease with which players can spend Fortnite's premium currency, either intentionally or accidentally, is the topic of many heated replies in the original Reddit post. Epic mentions its pending undo system, and concerns over the ease of making in-game purchases, sometimes unintentionally, in games played by children is an issue game developers have been aware of for some time now. As pointed out in the Reddit thread, Fortnite's current star purchases an item immediately upon clicking, pressing, or tapping that purchase button. However, the Japanese version of Fortnite takes players to a confirmation screen ahead of any cosmetic purchase, a feature not present in other versions of the game. Later on in that thread, an Epic Games employee showed up to say that there are not plans to bring that same confirmation screen to the West, but that Epic has an undo button planned to the start page in a future update. We neither want to add friction for our players, nor do we want to benefit from accidental purchases, or players regretting a purchase, said that developer. The game currently has a token-based refund system that gives players a set amount of lifetime refund requests for accidental purchases made within the last 30 days. The dev explains that original solution has now evolved into an undo button in the store that allows you to easily refund without using up a token within a 5-minute time window, assuming you have not started a match since purchase, though no timeline is given for when this feature will show up in Fortnite. The 2019 Game Developers Conference kicks off in San Francisco next week, and as you are taking a last look at your schedule, organizers want to highlight a really promising talk about the unique networking model, which makes Athleon's remarkable 8-player multiplayer matches possible. As part of the DD 2019 programming, Chekhov tells Ubisoft Montreal's Jennifer Henry will present Back to the Future, working with deterministic simulation in Honor, a behind-the-scenes look at an authoritative architecture behind the game, a variation on deterministic simulation. that uses time travel to not hinder fluidity and responsiveness, but as every team that commits to attack the Burnout faced many challenges on the path to ship. From the drastic optimizations needed to run 8 times the gameplay in a single frame, to the hard balance between shipping your game and training newcomers, Henry will share 6 years worth of lessons learned about the mysterious world of deterministic simulation in games. Do not miss it. Further details on this talk and many more are available now on THEGDC 2019 session scheduler. There you can begin to lay out your GD 2019, which takes place March 18th through the 22 at the newly renovated Moscone Center in San Francisco. Bring your team to GD, register a group of 10 or more and save 10% on conference passes. Learn more. For more details on GDC 2019, visit the show's official website, or subscribe to regular updates via Facebook, Twitter, OS. Gamasutra and GD are sibling organizations under parent company Informa. Marvel Spider-Man was a huge undertaking for Insomniac Games, and one that represented the largest game the studio had crafted to date. The size of the game, along with numerous different enemy factions and a city space that evolved throughout the game, led to a good deal of problems and interesting solutions, something that gameplay programmer Adam Winchester dove into during his post-mortem today at the Game Developers Conference. Spider-Man's combat is a fluid myriad of dodges, web slings, and combos, and the team had a couple of helpful tricks up their sleeve to capture that very Spider-Man feeling throughout the game. For aligning Spidey himself with his target, Winchester says they relied on sync joints and anchors to orientate the two combatants on the fly. Those two sync joints, one on Spider-Man and one on his target, would line up to each other, match up, and allow the animations for the ball to connect. There were a handful of different anchor techniques they used, depending on the situation, he explains. And as a bonus, the team was able to use camera zooms to mask some weirdness that emerged through animations because of how this system worked. However, the system was only set up to handle one-on-one animations, so when the topic of finishing moves, taking out more than one enemy, was mentioned later in development, it did not jive with the established system. Height adjustments also proved to be an issue, but one that the team often had to just roll with. As highlighted in one slide, did you know that most game worlds are not flat? Did you know that most mocap studios are? There are issues you fix and there are issues you roll with. And Winchester says some of the height differences in combat flows belong to that latter category. We cannot always fix things, he says, as an image of Spider-Man punching toward the kneecaps of an enemy on higher terrain pops up on a screen, and then we just deal with things being off. One of Winchester's main points throughout the talk was how important iteration is to the development process. I hope it's obvious, but it took quite a few tries to get things that you saw in this presentation to where it is now. Time and time again, Winchester said the team implemented changes that sought to find the balance between flow and difficulty. This became a system where an attacker token was essentially passed out to different members of an enemy group to control the pace and keep enemies from mobbing Spider-Man all at once, attacking too infrequently. Different actions affect the token's holder and behavior. So if an enemy gets too far from Spider-Man, the token resets to another foe that's already ready to attack. And when a player performs a dodge, there's a momentary enemy idle timer that kicks in to give the player a change to get a few good swings in. However, it was too easy for playtesters to feel like the enemies were scoring cheap hits. So iteration was key to discover the systems that eventually captured that Spider-Man flow. Ranged combat added another layer to that complexity, but they eventually worked out a system that prioritized attacks from on-screen enemies to avoid the feeling of cheap hits, and made off-screen enemies take longer to fire ranged weapons in general to give the in-game Spidey sense a fraction of a second longer to alert players of an incoming attack. On top of that, invincibility frames were added to combat animations, so players would not feel like enemies were knocking them out of already executed attacks. The system is not perfect, and there is a fair deal of exceptions that come into play, with de-cancel incoming attacks, unless you repeatedly used them, unless it's a dodge, unless it's in a boss fight. But the version that shipped with the game managed to accomplish combat that avoided having players feel cheated by the in-game mile. The solutions the team eventually used in the final game were not their first attempts